producers, how are you guys doing today? In this video I'll be going over 5 advanced features in Sampler, and these go beyond just dragging a sample into the sampler and playing it across your keyboard. So the first feature we have is the chains, and these basically allow you to take multiple samples and spread them across Sampler in different categories. So one of the categories is the key category. So if I get a sample right now, such as a clap like this one right here, it's pretty quiet right now, so I'm going to turn up the volume. I can also drag other samples below it, and it's going to create a chain, and by default they're going to be layered. But what I can do is I can go ahead and get this green bar right here and choose which note zone the samples are going to be played at. So if I wanted to, I could have a low brass sample. For example, if I had a brass instrument, I could put a middle range brass hit in the center of the keyboard and some more high-pitched brass samples at the top. So this allows you to kind of avoid stretching a sample too far from its original pitch and things of that nature. Or as well, if you wanted to, you can split Sampler into 2 different instruments. So I'm just going to go ahead and split these claps across the whole keyboard, and now if I play on different notes of the keyboard, it's actually going to play a different sample. What you'll notice is that the samples are going to be at different pitches than their original pitch. So when you're doing this, you want to make sure to go back to the sample tab and then select each sample depending on the zone, and match the zone to match the root key, which is down here in the bottom left corner, to your zone. So right here it's an F sharp 2, so I would go down to a F sharp 2, and now when I played at that note, it's gonna play at the original pitch. And then you want to do that for each sample. Right next to the root key, you have a scale knob right here, and if you turn that to 0%, then it's actually going to make sure that your sample is always playing at the same pitch, and this is good for drums. So we also have the same technique for velocity. So we went over the key. Now if you hit this VEL tab, it's going to open up the velocity multi-sample, and this allows you to spread samples out based on velocity. So I could have a softer toned sample for low velocities if I set up a sample to be only in the low velocities, and then I can have a harder, kind of harsher sample play each time I hit high velocity. So I could set up a zone for high velocities, and I could spread samples out based on how hard I'm hitting the keys, which keys I'm hitting, and overall there's a lot of possibilities you can go with this technique. The next advanced Ableton sampler feature is the sustain and looping modes. I can't really demonstrate the full capabilities with just a clap sample, but I can go ahead and do a very basic example. Basically, if I turn on this sustain mode right here with 2 arrows, then it's going to start looping this selection that we have with this bar at the top. So I can make this selection very small and loop something repeatedly, and then I can also hit this sustain mode, and basically instead of continuously looping forwards, it's gonna loop back and forth. So it has a different tone to it, and it may be useful in different situations. Now the best example for a good use for this technique is with my 808s and my 808 Essentials kit. And basically what I did was I took all these 808s and I looped them in a sampler, and I have a loop zone selected right here, and if I hold it, it's just gonna keep looping. So you can create things like infinite samples. I could get a saw wave sample and just keep looping it, and it will be like playing a synth because it's just it just keeps going no matter how long I hold it. And that's one of the limitations of samples, is that they have a limited time compared to a synth. I actually have a full video about sustain modes in the sampler, and there's a lot more than what I just showed you guys, so I'll have that on the screen, or hopefully in like a YouTube card that you guys can click on. You guys can watch the video about that. But next up we have the filter section, and the reason why I say this is because Sampler has a ton of functionalities with its filter. It has a filter envelope, which you can use to control the movement of the filter. I'm not going to go over envelopes and all that, but it also has a bunch of different filter modes that have a different tone to them. I don't exactly know how to explain each one. You just got to use what your ears like the most, I guess, or what suits your situation. But the cool thing is that there's also a distortion unit. So distortion just adds kind of harmonics to a sound, and you can set it up so that the distortion either goes into the filter, or the filter filters the sound and then goes out to the distortion with this small little arrow right here. So if it's going up from the distortion, it's going into the filter. If it's going down from the filter, that means the sound is being filtered and then going to the distortion. Now this is kind of cool, especially with this 808 example. I can get some distortion. Let's get like a soft distortion. And then I have this grittier sound. I can go with a hard distortion actually. No, I like soft better. But then I can make that go into a filter. Alright, there we go. I had the distortion down. I couldn't hear it for some reason. Turns out it was on the whole time. So basically I have a macro right here, but you can also control the filter from the frequency. And you can then have the distortion going into the filter. So I can do some cool stuff with the envelope, where I just start low and then kind of have it come up. And you have to turn up the amount all the way. Let's put up some resonance as well. Just showing you guys different things you can do. So next we have the pitch/oscillator section to the left, or I don't know if it's this way or that way for you guys, but it's to the left of the filter section. And this has to be my favorite sampler section because it's so cool. But if we go to the pitch and oscillator section, we have an oscillator, and it's not what you think it is. It doesn't actually make any sound, but what it does is that it either modulates the frequency, which is called FM synthesis, or it modulates the amplitude, which is AM. So I'm not going to explain those terms, but if you have something like operator FM, FM8 is a FM synth, basically it's going to be modulating your whole sample. So if I turn up the volume here and I turn on the oscillator, it's being modulated by a sine wave, and we have a coarse parameter, and if I turn that up, okay, first of all, that's really loud, but you can get some really weird sounds. A lot of like neuro type of music is made with FM synthesis. I'm assuming dubstep and things of that nature, or drum and bass have a lot of neuro sounds like that. But you basically have FM for any sample. And right here you have all of the different waves that your oscillator can be. So by default it's a sine wave. Now this is crazy because it's a sample. It's not a oscillator modulating another oscillator. It's like a full-on sample being modulated. So it's incredibly powerful. You also have the attack. Do some crazy stuff with this. Anyways, if I turn on the release, it's just insane. This is just insane, like crazy. Anyways, that was the pitch and the oscillator section. And actually I forgot to explain the pitch envelope. Basically, if I turn this on, I can control the pitch of the sample. I can make it go up or down. All I have to do is turn up the amount or turn it down. So let me turn off the oscillator. I can have a upwards going pitch or a downwards pitch, and I have control over the time. It's insane. Anyways, that was the pitch and the oscillator section. Now the final section we have is the modulation section, and personally this is my favorite because of how much freedom and how much creativity it allows for you to achieve with it. Because right off the bat you have an envelope which you can map to any two parameters. You have an A parameter and a B parameter, and you can even apply this to the volume of the synths, of the oscillators from the FM, or you can apply it to the amount of the LFOs that you have to the right here. And basically you just have 3 LFOs. 2 of them can be applied to any parameter, and then the first one can be applied to the volume, to the panning, to the filter, and to the pitch. And the cool thing about these LFOs is that you can turn up the frequency so high that it becomes like an FM oscillator. It goes to 30 hertz, so that's like low, it's borderline like not audible, but it can act like an FM. So if I apply this to the pitch, notice that my oscillator thing is off and my pitch is off. I have a very low FM, I guess is the best way to put it. It can go slow or fast. You can sync it. You guys get the point. The modulation section can be used to control different parameters. You have all these parameters on the screen, so either pause the screen right now if you really want to see it, or just go into Ableton and look at it. And really, this whole thing is crazy. That concludes this video on 5 advanced features of Sampler. If you liked the video, leave a like. If you disliked the video, leave a dislike, and subscribe to this channel if you want to see more videos, and let me know what you guys want to see next. And thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you guys next time.